Securities offered through Kestra Investment Services, LLC, Kestra IS, member FINRA SIPC. Investment advisory services offered through Kestra Advisory Services, LLC, Kestra AS, an affiliate of Kestra IS. Capital Advisory Group, Inc. is not affiliated with Kestra IS or Kestra AS. Neither Kestra IS nor Kestra AS provide legal or tax advice and are not certified public accounting firms.
You work hard for your money. For the next hour, you're going to learn how to keep what's yours. Capital Advisory Group presents Keep What's Yours. Here is Josh Gilbert and Jeff Zufall.
Hello and welcome to Keep What's Yours with Jeff Zufall. I'm Josh Gilbert, and Jeff Zufall is here, Senior Tax Strategist and Wealth Advisor with Capital Advisory Group.
Hello, happy Saturday.
Hello, Jeff, and the show is called Keep What's Yours. You wrote the book, Keep What's Yours, How to Leverage the New Tax Law to Create Unfair Advantage Over Your Competition. There's a lot of good information in here, and we decided one day, you know what, this would be a great radio conversation. Oh, yeah, let's talk taxes on a Saturday
Afternoon. Woohoo.
Well, let me ask you this. Do you pay taxes?
Yes.
I'll wait. do the listeners like, yeah, I guess I pay taxes. Well, this is the show for you.
That's right.
Anyone who has to pay taxes, this is your show, because we're trying to tell you how this whole thing works and where you might be able to wiggle and squiggle and squirm.
Exactly.
To fit your life situation into the tax code and maybe keep a little bit more of your money in your bank account rather than going out to the federal government.
Yes.
So I always say the example every week. I have a son, he's school age, and we've got to pay daycare anyway. Is there any way that we can use tax-free money to pay for daycare?
Pay for daycare.
And you got to set up with an FSA, a flex spending account.
That's it.
And you know, it comes straight out of our paycheck. It comes before the tax man cometh. Yes. It sits in an account, and at the end of the year, we just use that money to pay our daycare.
Yes.
And that is all tax-free money.
Yes. So
last year we saved $5,000. Well, I'll say we set $5,000 aside from our paycheck. We're in the 24% tax bracket, so we kept $1,200.
$1,200 in your pocket.
That's how it works.
It's that easy.
This year, I'm going to try to utilize the tax code to set aside $10,000.
Exactly.
From straight off our paychecks before the taxes hit it.
Right in. You got to pay it anyway.
So if I was going to pay taxes on $10,000 from that paycheck, and I'm at the 24% tax bracket, that's $2,400.
Exactly.
That's $2,400 real world dollars
in your pocket.
In my pocket.
Saved. Yes.
Saved.
And that's just one piece of the puzzle.
Right.
So, yeah.
And that's easy stuff.
Yeah.
You know, do you have kids school age? Do you have to pay
Not anymore.
tuition? Well, and this could be for college kids. This could grandparents can do this,
exactly.
right?
Exactly.
But it is all predicated on the child's social security number. So it's not like grandma and grandpa can do it and mom and dad can do it for the same kid, right?
Well, on a 529, you could do it.
Okay.
But it's a little different there, but that's where you're putting money away. You're getting a state tax deduction up to $16,000 that's going in a 529. And as long as it's used for, higher education, private elementary, private high school, anything of that such, you then would get tax-free withdrawals from those accounts. So if you had gains on that money, you never pay the tax on it, as long as it's done correctly.
All right. So that is that. If you're grandma and grandpa and you want to save for college, higher education for your grandkids, you can start today.
Yes.
Meanwhile, mom and dad, that's me.
Yeah.
We're doing it for,
exactly.
And
typically grandparents don't show up to the junior or senior year with the 529 plan. That way, technically, nobody really knows it's out there. Can't ever be used against them. And then grandma and grandpa show up junior, senior year and say, hey, here's some money.
Oh, by the way, here's some cash.
Yeah. And it doesn't affect their...
As long as you go to college.
Yes.
Now, can that be
no
used?
Harleys.
Right. 4-year universities, 2-year junior colleges.
Exactly.
Trade schools. Can I go to trade schools?
Yeah. In the past, when the 529s originally came out, trade schools were not included in it. It had to be an accredited school, and a lot of those were not accredited schools. They are today. So if you decide to go into HVAC or a plumber, a 529 can be used for your tuition for that, too.
We're going to save money to set aside so that my son, Finn, can go to Mizzou, M-I-Z.
Yep.
Proud alumni. But if he decides he wants to go into a trade, We
Still
can
there.
just move it
Exactly.
and just push it.
Exact same scenario. Don't have
Same
to
scenario.
change anything. Just write a check to a different school.
You know what? I'm going to tell him as he's growing up, the trades actually make more money. Your
do.
old pop here is working on the weekends.
That's right.
Because he didn't pick a trade. So a really cool option to think about when you talk to your tax person or your wealth advisor, and maybe that person could be Jeff Zufall.
Exactly. We hope so.
Because you seem to know what you're talking about.
A little bit.
Here's the deal. If you hear what we're talking about at any point today, just pick up the phone and call 636-394-5524 and say, I like that idea about saving for trade school, or I like that idea about saving for private grade school or for pre-K or whatever. If you pay money for school, you can have portions of it set aside tax-free.
Yes.
Keep a little bit more money in your pocket. Just leave a message for Jeff. He's a little busy right now. But call the number anyway. Leave a message for Jeff and just say, here's my phone number. This is what I'm thinking. I want you to help me out. I want you to set me up with a flex spending account. Or even, what about medical bills? If you know that every year you've got 10, 20 grand in medical bills.
Same thing. Exactly.
Same scenario.
Yeah.
Just set it aside. It'll be tax-free, and if you're in the 24% tax bracket like I am, me and my wife filing jointly, you can save,
tons of money,
24% on your tax bill.
Yeah.
At least for the medical costs of the school savings. So that is that. Now, Jeff, what I want to talk about today is I'm sick of being in the 24% tax bracket. I want to be in the 37%,
yes.
tax bracket, because that would mean that I have just won the lottery.
Dun, 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 dun. You have to go in hiding.
Yeah, well, that, lottery ruined my life. Well, you know, in some ways maybe, but in other ways.
It didn't.
There's always, have you seen that show? It's like, lottery ruined my life. And it's these people from small towns, and they buy the local restaurant, and everybody knocks on their door with their hand out.
And they hand out money, and they buy fleets of vehicles.
Or they blow it, on cars and stuff. Look, if lottery ruined your life, I would say it's fair to guess that your life might not have been going in the right direction in the first place.
True. And most people never had some of the stuff that they're suggesting is if you won this lottery, prior to stepping up and saying, hey, I won, to get a team put together of not only accountants and financial advisors, attorneys, tax attorneys, but also go to a therapist that explain to you, because your life will change so dramatically, to go actually sit down and talk with a therapist.
And that's something that I never thought about because, none of us have ever had
that big of a life
$1 billion.
Exactly. It'll change relationships, family relationships, business relationships.
It will never be the same.
Yeah.
But hopefully for the better.
Hopefully for the better.
For the better.
Yeah.
I mean, this is a show about taxes. It's not a show about psychology.
Yeah.
But,
no.
It all rolls together, and, you win the lottery. Mega Millions for $1 billion, your first phone call should be to Jeff Zufall.
Yes.
And just say, Jeff, I need that team.
That's
what was that team you were talking about?
Well, it's basically just a team of accountants, financial advisors, tax attorneys, regular attorneys, because you're going to have people come out of the woodwork saying, hey, I loaned you $5 $1 million years ago.
I'm with interest.
Yeah, and you owe me $1 million today. So.
And, it's fun to dream and, I'd give $1 million to all my family members and, hopefully they leave it at that. But, you got that deadbeat cousin that keeps coming
That's
around.
Right. Once $2 million, once $3 million.
I mean, obviously there are problems in everyone's life.
Exactly.
But it's not, Easy Street has a couple of speed bumps.
Yes, and a roadblock here or there.
Right. But don't ever let it be because you mismanaged your own money.
Yes.
And blame other people.
That's right.
For ringing your doorbell at 2 a.m. saying, hey, I was wanting to buy some property.
Can I have $1 million?
Can I get a loan scheme? Let it be other people, not yourself. Don't let it be self-inflicted. And look, Jeff, I'll tell you this. Whether it be winning $1 billion in the lottery or getting $50,000 in an inheritance.
Exactly.
I need help.
One
I need to know what to do with
One could
it.
be taxable, or one will be taxable. One could possibly be tax-free. So That's the good part.
So, an inheritance, I get it, and depending on what it's from, whether it's from the 401k or whether it's from a bank account or whatever, you need to know what are the tax implications, and there are ways to avoid.
To mitigate the taxes legally.
So just keep in mind, it's not just the $1 billion lottery winners.
Yes, that's the ones that make the front page news, et cetera, et cetera.
Right.
So, yeah.
It's the inheritances. It's the, I got a big bonus from work check. What should I do with this?
Exactly.
I don't want to leave $100,000 sitting in a checking account because it's not making me any money.
Exactly. It's technically losing money with inflation today. Inflation's 9.1%.
So my $100,000 in my checking account is only like $91,000.
12 months later, nobody's going to send you a statement because the statement from the bank still says you have $100,000 there, but your purchasing power is down by 9.1%.
Right. So that's the idea that you have extra money. What can you do with it? Jeff will help. Make sure that the tax implications are minimized, and make sure that when you go to reinvest it, that you're doing so wisely. Rather than get 1% back or 0.05%. How can I make this money work for me? Because at the end of the day, Jeff, I want to be independently wealthy, and I want my money making money.
Exactly.
So how do we do that? Get Jeff on the case, 636-394-5524. Senior tax strategist and wealth advisor with Capital Advisory Group. Now, let's go to commercial break. But when we come back, I want to talk about the lottery. You've done a little research to find out, should we take the lump sum? Should we take it stretched out over 30 years? Do they put it in escrow? What are the implications? How much am I really losing to taxes?
Yes.
If I take the one lump sum, how does that work? We'll talk about it on the other side of this commercial break. One can dream, can't we?
That's right, you can. It's awesome. Even if you get just a piece of it.
Yeah, maybe I just matched 5 numbers.
That's
and I got $1 million. I still need help knowing what to do about that.
Yes.
So without dreams, Jeff, is someone who's
boring.
a sad and boring case. So let's dream a little bit in the next segment. What happens if we win $1 billion in the lottery? Keep what's yours with Jeff Zufall. I'm Josh Gilbert. We'll be back right after this.
Back to Keep What's Yours with Josh Gilbert and Jeff Zufall.
Back on the Big 550 KTRS, back on Keep What's Yours with Jeff Zufall, senior tax strategist and wealth advisor with Capital Advisory Group. Full disclosure, I was just in Jeff's office this past week. He stayed a little late for me to come in. We talked a little bit about doing an LLC. We talked a little bit about what should my wife's 401k be invested in.
Yes.
There's little things that come with little return, but we're fairly young, Jeff, and you've seen my numbers, and you remind me more than you should. You remind me, you say, Josh, you will be working for the next 30 years.
Yes.
Don't get comfortable.
It was 70, now it might be 73-ish.
Yeah. He's seen my numbers. He knows what I make. It's going to be a long time before I get to settle down. But maybe we could get there quicker.
Yes.
If we're still young and we've got another 25, 30 years left of work, we could be a little bit more
aggressive. Yeah, aggressive from as long as you have an outlook on the market of maybe 5, 10, 15 years. A downturn in the market currently, it's a godsend to you. Yeah. Seriously, to buy in. Now, if you're retiring in 2, 3, 4 years, no, you don't want to be anywhere near the market.
Last thing you want is for when COVID happened and everything shut down, the market went from 30,000 to 20,000. I mean, that's a third of your wealth.
In 7 days.
In 7 days, wiped out.
Exactly.
But
it came right back. But you don't know if the market's going to do that over a 6 month, 9 month, 6 years. You're not.
It might take 6 years to climb back out. If you're retiring in 2 years,
you're in trouble.
You just lost a third of your retirement, and that's the last thing that you want. And these are very soft numbers.
Oh, very soft. So yes.
we're not necessarily giving advice out right now. We're just kind of saying these are certain things that can happen when you're younger.
Exactly.
You want to be a little bit more aggressive. That's why we had to have Jeff look at my wife's setup and what they're going to do. And you can do this with anybody. Eventually, you're going to have to get on the phone with her HR department.
Exactly.
She'll be there and say, I authorize Jeff to talk on my behalf.
And we'll reset.
And then she'll go and get lunch, and
Yeah.
you and HR will have a talk.
Hack it out. Yeah. Exactly.
And just figure out what they offer and what we could be taking advantage of.
Yeah.
So Jeff can do that for you as well. 636-394-5524. Like I said, give the number a call. Leave a message. Jeff's a little busy right now doing a radio show. But leave a message and just say, call me on Monday.
Exactly.
And tell me what I can be doing to keep more of my money on my paycheck rather than going in taxes. And tell me how I can maybe retire a little bit earlier.
Exactly.
Than
And again,
working into my late 70s.
Yeah. From a tax strategy or a tax plan, there is not one silver bullet that you go, oh, just do this and you saved all this money. It typically is multitudes of little, like you said, little ideas that are put into play that save, $1,000 here, $2,000 there, but they all add up over time.
For my son's schooling, I can save $2,400, $2,000 extra dollars on my paycheck in my bank account, and that's one.
That's just one.
That's just one.
First step.
So if we can do a couple more, maybe I can end up saving $5-10 grand.
Exactly.
Keeping it in
your pocket.
In my pocket,
yes.
And not the last thing the government needs from me is $10,000.
Well, no, they do, but you just want to do it legally and keep it from going to.
Right. Well, yeah, they need all the money they can get. Yeah. But frankly, what are they going to spend it on? I can find something a lot better to do with it. And dare to dream, Jeff. Maybe, I'd be happy to give the federal government $200 million.
Yeah, if you want $1 billion.
If I want $1 billion. If I want $1 billion.
Yes.
So let's just take the Mega Millions, $1 billion lottery. I got to check my numbers. I might already be a winner.
That's right. You could be a winner.
But what happens when $1 billion is up for grabs and somebody wins the lottery? The first thing I think of is one lump sum versus spreading it out.
Yes. So they'll spread it out. They'll give you one payment, which is the first year you win it, and then you'll have 29 years left. And so that money basically goes into escrow. You don't get a higher profit. You get a 5% cost of living increase. Which is so kind of them to give
every
you
year
going forward. So, whatever that divides out to be, and then each year you would pay tax on it as it is paid to you. So the lottery is sitting on, trillions of dollars they'd have to do that they actually pay out each year. But typically most people will take the cash out because the theory is hey, I'm going to get, 29 more payments of, $30 million a year. Versus I can get a net of $650 million lump sum put in my bank account tomorrow.
Yeah.
Now, the bank would probably be panic-stricken when that shows up. You need to, assemble a team. The team is, accountants, tax attorneys, wealth advisors.
And there's a lot of times where they say, you've got 6 months to claim
to
your
assemble
winnings.
Because there's other tricks which it gets a little goofy. You create up family limited partnerships. The money actually goes into the family partnership so they can be divided up. Because again, you can't just walk over and say, I'm going to give $1 million to every one of my family members. Because if you do that, somebody's paying a gift tax.
Yeah.
So you get $16,000 per year per person that you could write a check to.
If I gave my brother $1 million, I far surpassed that $16,000.
Way above.
Well, if I said, I'll give you $16,000 a year.
Yeah.
And he'd be like, no, I'll pay the taxes.
Yeah. So, but whoever gifts it actually then files a gift tax return.
Oh, I see. So if I gifted him $1 million, I would pay the taxes on that.
He'd get $1 million in his pocket and say, "Thank you very much. You're the greatest brother ever."
Well, that's nice.
Yeah.
At least I'm not burdening him with a giant tax.
Exactly.
bill.
And then going forward, he'd have a tax issue because he'd have $1 million sitting in the bank account.
Right.
But typically, you create a team. The team actually gets together, plots this over, 6 months before you actually step up with your ticket and say, "Hey, I won." Some of the other stuff that I never really thought of. They're saying that ticket they refer to it as a bearer, which means whoever holds that ticket is the ultimate winner. So you take a picture of yourself with your ticket front and back, standing there so you can read the ticket and then put it in a safe deposit box.
Yeah.
And then when you're ready to go.
lock that sucker
Yes.
up.
And in some states, again, this is where you get in the legal weirdness. Some states, they say if you sign the back of it immediately, that it invalidates that ticket in certain states because it has to be signed in front of witnesses.
Okay.
So I was like, never really thought of that one
Right.
either.
So as soon as you find out you're the winner, call Jeff Zufall, 636-394-5524. Do not pass go.
Yeah, don't pass go on that.
You're going to get more than $200, okay?
Yes.
Just go straight to Capital Advisory Group and say, oh, my gosh, what do I do?
Yes.
And then, on the way there, be very careful in your traffic. You don't want to you don't want to speed. You don't want to ruin this thing. You got years ahead of you, and with all that kind of money, Jeff, I better be living to 100.
Yes, huge money. You can buy any medical need that you need.
I'm going to buy a new body and just plop my brain
plop
in
it right in there.
So it's just one of those things you just have to, and even, I like to say this because we're dreaming about this, but you know what's realistic?
It'd be cool.
Is coming into $100,000. Maybe not $100 million, but $100,000. It's a little bit smaller in scale.
It's easier to kind of digest and adapt to. Because if you won this $1 billion, I mean, literally, you have a team helping you kind of guide your way through it. And again, like we were talking about earlier, you need a psychologist, a money psychologist, to actually, because your life is going to change dramatically. Just boom. And there are circumstances on huge inheritances, lotto winners, stuff like that, there's people out there. That's all they do. They travel the country. They'll come sit with you and basically kind of get your head right as you go forward. And
because just imagine, think about that deadbeat cousin of yours. What would happen if someone gave him $100 million or $1 billion?
Yeah.
Uh-oh.
Yeah.
Lottery ruined my life. Yeah, because you weren't ready for it. But
exactly.
I'm ready. I'm ready for this. So let me ask you these things. If I won $1 billion and I spread the payments out over 30 years, they'll give me the first payment up front. I'm doing fat finger math here. That's $33 to $35 million
a year.
Yes. For the next 30 years. And I'm, like I said, I'm young. I'm 40. I think, I'll still be, if I had $30 million a year, I'm going to be around at 70.
Yeah, hopefully.
I'll pay a good doctor to make sure that I don't kick the bucket. But if I spread that out over 30 years, I'm starting to think here, what if I got a one lump sum? And instead,
most people take lump sum.
$35 million a year over 30 years, or
versus $608 million lump sum.
So why is that number so considerably less? I mean, that's almost 40%.
Exactly. So out of the box, when they cut you this check, they're forced to withhold from the lottery department 24%. For federal tax, and
if we're talking $1 billion,
exactly,
that's $144 million.
And then you have to file your tax return. And on your tax return, unfortunately, the highest tax bracket out there is 37%. So you'll owe more tax when you do your return, because you're trying to see if there's anything you can do from a deduction standpoint, which that is a whole nother stratosphere of thinking.
That's part of the team,
exactly, to put together something to reduce your tax liability. And then go forward. But it's still going to end up, at the end of the day, you paid 24, you'll end up paying an additional, 14 to get you to 37% at the end of the day.
So let me ask you this.
Plus state tax.
Oh, state tax. In the state of Missouri, it's
5% max, 5.4 max. And each state,
hope you won in Florida.
Well, see, there's the other thing. Is some states that I was looking at, I didn't dig that deep, but California actually does not charge a state tax on lottery winnings.
Oh, so, California has a huge state tax.
Huge. So that's like a 10-point-something% relief.
But on lottery winnings, they give you a break.
They give you a break.
Well, how about that? Yeah. California's not so bad after all.
Yeah, Florida, Texas, no state tax, so there's no state tax that they're going to impose on you. So,
now,
but you also can't move. When you win it, you can't move to Florida and say, hey,
immediately.
Florida resident.
I just claimed it in Florida. I have to establish residency for more than...
I guarantee you they'll come knock on your door looking for it. So.
Yeah, and they'll see that I'll have, a mattress on the floor. Oh, yeah, I've been living here for years. Yeah, right.
Flee to Ferraris out front.
Yeah. So let me ask you this. When I win, right off the top, they take 24%. Okay, so now my $1 billion is what, 700
something. You'd
$750,000.
You'd net out about 600. I think $658 million is what they would actually write you a check for.
But that is, hey, Josh Gilbert in the state of Missouri just had an income increase for 2022, and he went from I'm not going to tell you what I make, but he went from making
a whole bunch,
5 figures to making, I don't even know what that number is.
You would probably, when they
12 figures.
Yeah, when you do your return, I would assume that more than likely somebody's really going to look at it. It's not really going to be e-filed. Someone would sit down and redo the math for you a couple of times to make sure you're right.
But there's no like lottery tax. It's just the fact that my income is now $700 million all of a sudden. I'm at 37%, the highest tax bracket.
Tax bracket out there, yes.
So that money that gets peeled away from the billion, that's just regular income tax that I pay, that you pay, that everybody pays.
If whether it was $1 million or whether it was $658 million, you're still going to pay that.
So this is a 2022 event, okay? And I pay taxes next year, next April 15th. I pay taxes. And, oh my God, can you imagine cutting a check for?
How about this? Let's say that you won it today.
Yeah.
The estimated tax payments are September 15th and January 15th. So remember, they're going to withhold 24% only. You still owe the balance. Yeah. So if you waited until you filed your return and then said, hey, I won $658 million, your underpayment penalties for the balance that you owe is going to be huge.
Yeah. Yeah, penalties. So again, you need somebody on the team reminding you of this. But, when it comes to 2023, 2024, if I'm not buying crazy things here and there,
depends upon what you do with that money.
I just had $600 million sitting in the bank. They're not going to. They already taxed it.
You already taxed it, but any earnings on that $600 million, as you go forward, you will pay capital gains, dividends,
just like
interest.
anything else.
Exactly.
But if I just leave that in a bank account,
you just went down to the local bank, plopped it in a savings account, and you could earn 1%. You would make $6 million a year.
So just putting it in a 1% earning bank account, which we try to steer people away from.
Exactly.
There's better
there's a lot
investment vehicles out there.
Yes.
But just having it sitting in the bank, it will get you $6 million a year.
1% would
1%.
So
600 is 6.
So if you could be strategic about it, not saying you could achieve this, but you go out and get a 10% rate of return on $600 million, you're making $60 million a year.
$60 million a year.
Exactly.
And that beats the heck out of taking payments over 30 years.
Even if you made a 5% rate of return, you're $30 million a year.
So the idea, I think what you're saying is the idea is take the one lump sum, and rather than doing, $35 million a year for 30 years, get the big bucks up front, invest it,
exactly.
And with the magic of compound interest,
it's there, and it's
your
crazy.
Money's going to be making more over 30 years than what the lottery is going to pay you.
But again, that's where those the team comes into play. I say psychologist from a money standpoint, because your life changes dramatically.
Yeah,
and most people, honestly, most people can't handle that kind of a change.
Well, what did Jay Leno always say? He never touched his Tonight Show money. Yeah. He only just bought his crazy car collection.
Cars, which are worth
right
$700 million.
Yeah, $100 million. He just used the money that he would get from doing stand-up on the weekends. Mm-hmm. So I could just be living off of $60 million a year.
You'd still be showing up at KTRS
for my investment
working Saturdays.
Portfolio. Yeah, right. Maybe I would do this just for fun. But you could be making $60 million if you had $600 million.
Exactly.
And a nice investment vehicle, and you'd just be living high on the hog with reserves.
Exactly.
So let me ask you this. You got $600 million in the bank. You already paid the taxes on it.
Mm-hmm.
The IRS is just kind of like staring at that money. Well, we can't double dip on
sitting out front of your house every day watching you.
But he's whispering in my ear, you should invest that. You should, you should spend that on something that we can tax. Because if it's taxed once, In theory, it'll never be taxed again?
Not necessarily.
Okay.
Because if you invest it, you're going to create maybe a capital gain. So you're going to create a capital gains. Your capital gain is going to be at 20%.
But I'm only taxed on the gains.
Only on the gains. Or
Not
interest. So
yeah.
if it earns interest, it earns that $1 million or $6 million of interest. You pay that.
I get
as
taxed
interest
on
income.
that.
Yeah.
That's fine. I make $60 million a year. Tax away.
Yeah, and that's only
I'd rather have that than not.
Exactly. And again, the capital gain is only if you sell something. So again, now you're talking like, Musk, where if you bought some stuff, sat on it, but never sold it, you're never paying tax on it again.
And what did we say about Jeff Bezos? Because now we're in their
He
territory.
makes $86,000 a year.
He pays taxes on $86,000 a year.
But all of his money is in stock. So
And
until he sells it, he does not pay a capital gain.
Are there these shell companies that buy his yacht for him?
Exactly. Yeah.
So that his personal income tax is $86,000 a year.
Yes.
Yet he's hanging out with Leo on the
Exactly. On the $155 million yacht.
yacht. And the Jeff Bezos LLC Corporation bought it. He didn't.
MyBoat.com. No.
Yeah, my boat LLC bought it. So, we're talking crazy numbers here.
Yeah. But that's what it is. I mean, $1 billion.
Let's shrink that down to something that people actually get. I mean, we're in St. Louis. There's sneaky money around town.
Sure there is.
You just drive down Wydown and say, well, who lives in that house?
Where'd that come from?
Yeah. You go out to Warson Woods and be like, wow, where'd that come from? What does that guy do for a living? I'd love to know what some of these people do for a living.
Oh, yeah.
And just say, hey, can I switch careers at 40?
Yeah. Well, they're definitely not radio personalities and accountants.
No. So neither one of us. But you've probably seen some money. I mean, an inheritance from mom and dad or grandma or something, that
huge
could be
dollars.
Hundreds of thousands of dollars.
Maybe in tens of millions too.
Oh, even that? Okay. So sneaky money.
Yes. Just
So-
hiding. You never suspect it.
I need a team, or at the very least, I need a Jeff Zufall to say, hey, I've got $10 million coming to me from the family farm.
Yeah. What do I do?
What do I do?
Yeah.
How do I avoid paying more taxes on it than I need to?
Mm-hmm.
How can I keep more of it in my account and less of it
Then going to the feds.
going to the feds? And you help people out with that stuff every day.
Yes. It's exactly what we do.
So it's much smaller scale.
Could be thousands, but it's been as high as tens of millions.
So keep this in mind. We're still dreaming here.
Yeah.
Taking the one lump sum after income tax and after, state taxes and everything, let's just say $1 billion turns into $600 million pretty quickly.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Cost of doing business. All right.
Yeah.
I'd be happy to pay it.
Yeah, I'll take it.
Happy
I'll
to
trade you.
That's the most amazing check I've ever written.
Yes.
Do you really write it on my little personal checking account?
No, this is done through wires,
Yeah.
wire transfers between banks. I think if somebody got a check for, IRS got a check for $400 million, I think they'd look at it and go, fraud.
This little box isn't big enough for all these zeros.
For the zeros to fit in there, yes.
But when I get $600 million put in my bank account, I pay all the taxes up front on it. Now it's time to invest.
Mm-hmm.
And whether it's $600 million or whether it's $600,000 or
Yes.
whether it's $60,000, I want to do it smartly.
Mm-hmm.
And I want to do it tax efficiently.
Yes.
And that's where you come in.
Exactly.
636-394-5524. If you think you're coming into lottery winnings, or you think you're coming in to an inheritance, or you think you're going to be getting a bunch of money from some real estate sales.
Yeah.
You need to know where
what the next step is.
you got to
how it
talk
affects you.
beforehand, right?
Exactly. So real estate, you could do what's called basically 1031 exchanges, which means you could push it into another piece of property
And never have
pay
to
the
pay
tax.
taxes on it.
Or just really defers the tax. But you need to do that. You need to declare it prior to saying
You can't
hey, I
take
sold-
possession of that money
Yeah,
ever,
exactly.
right? It
Technically,
has to
no.
move
It's got to move from one property to
the next.
Exactly.
It never hits your bank account.
Yeah, but you also have to declare it 30, 60, 80 days or 90 days prior to. There's a series of events that need to take place to push
Right.
it forward. So you
So
just can't say, hey, I'm selling that tomorrow, but, I don't want to pay tax. I'm going to put it over here. It's too late.
If you're selling property and you know it's coming up and you plan this for a while, have a plan in place to maybe roll it into
Exactly.
another property.
Yeah.
And do you have to pull the full amount?
Yes.
You have to put the full amount.
Full amount goes forward, but at least you don't pay tax on it.
No capital gains tax.
No capital gains.
How about that? So that is something to think about.
Well,
you know, and these are real world things. The lottery stuff, that was fun to talk about.
But this is real world. You have a rental property. You need to do something with it. One of the concepts would be continuously doing the 1031, buying a new piece of property with it, basically at death. Right now, the way that it sits, step up in fair market value, day of death. So literally you could then gift it to the kids, and nobody ever pays tax on it.
Love it.
Yeah.
And these are legal things that are written into the tax code. Every once in a while, the little guy
wins.
Wins.
Every once in a while.
So it's like, you know, the only way that we can realize those wins is by having a Jeff Zufall.
Got to have a plan.
Corner.
Yep.
Senior tax strategist and wealth advisor with Capital Advisory Group. 636-394-5524. Now, Jeff, in the next segment, there's a little R word that's been floating around.
Scary.
Recession. What's the reality of it?
Of a recession.
So we'll talk about that in the next segment. Keep what's yours with Jeff Zufall, Capital Advisory Group, 636-394-5524. I just went in and saw him this past week, and you can too. 636-394-5524. Get an appointment on the calendar and go see Jeff.
Back to Keep What's Yours with Josh Gilbert and Jeff Zufall.
Back on the Big 550 KTRS, Keep What's Yours with Jeff Zufall, Senior Tax Strategist and Wealth Advisor with Capital Advisory Group. Do you pay taxes every year? The answer is yes. I don't care who you are. You have to pay something.
Yes.
Unless you're GE, who doesn't pay any tax.
Yeah, they don't pay any tax.
But nobody listening. Well, I guess corporations are people.
Yeah.
But let's not get into that right
now.
Do you pay taxes? Then this is the show for you, because we're talking about how you can keep more of your money in your pocket and in your paycheck and in your bank account rather than going out to the feds because like they need any more money. Okay. Recession.
Yes. The dreaded R word.
So what is a recession technically? What is it practically?
So technically a recession is 2 consecutive quarters of negative GDP, or gross domestic product of the United States. So basically what it's saying is kind of a contraction of the economy. But again, these numbers, like we were down 1.6% for the first quarter of 2022, and we're down 0.09% for the second quarter of 2022.
So we're barely.
This
second quarter, barely.
Skidding by. But from the terminology of it, technically, it's a recession. So you go, ooh. And the funny part in our business is usually about the time that the recession is declared, you're already in it. We've been in it since January.
Right. Okay.
So you go, ooh. But if you look at this recession today, I won't say it's different because you never want to say that in the market and the economics, but it's weirder. And it's weirder from the standpoint because we have corporate earnings, which is the gauge. That's your Walmarts, your Targets, your IBMs, Coca-Cola. The bulk of them, other than retail, are still reporting really good numbers, which means they're making money. And unemployment is at 3.4%. It's an all-time low. But if you say, over a period of time, could this, say that the third quarter of this year go negative and fourth quarter of this year go negative? Could that erode on corporate profits, which means companies are no longer making the money that they used to? And in turn, what they will do is then turn around and start to lay people off. So you'll see corporate earnings start to come down and unemployment start to rise. That is the real concern that's out there. And again, you have the Fed raising interest rates, trying to slow down the economy because of the 9.1% inflation that we're dealing with. That could get really tricky really quick.
So in a typical recession, you've got high unemployment and corporate earnings down.
Mm-hmm.
But in this recession, and I've we don't get political on this show because money, money doesn't have a politic. It's either in my pocket or it's not. I've heard people saying, well, this administration's trying to, change the definition of what a recession is.
Well, I mean, to their, I say, defense in a sense, if you just said, hey, it's 2 consecutive quarters back-to-back of negative GDP.
That's a recession.
That's a recession. I mean, so, okay, that's it. But maybe it does need a little bit more terminology put behind it. but also could they be saying, hey, we're going to skew this a little bit and dress it up so that everybody doesn't go into a panic?
Yeah.
Which there's
obviously they're going to try to spin it
exactly
whatever way.
Yeah.
But if in a typical recession there's high unemployment, Jeff, people are still aching for workers right now.
I mean, everybody that I talk to, any business owner is still like, hey, I cannot hire people fast enough or train them fast enough to get them on board.
So a typical recession, unemployment's up. This recession, people can't find enough workers.
Exactly.
Typical recession, corporate earnings are down. This recession, earnings are steady, depending on which industry you're looking at.
I mean, retail, they're getting killed because of inflation, and a lot of people have now started to back down, not buy the stuff that they used to. So that could be that turn where you see the corporate profits over a longer period of time start to come down because people are just now starting to slow up. But again, in the mortgage industry, J.P. Morgan just laid off 1,000 mortgage brokers, but that's because interest rates are up. Not that many people are applying for mortgages anymore, so that's supply demand from
the
from
mortgage
their
industry. That's probably down.
Oh yeah, it's down. I think the report was in maybe 20% month to month from a decline in applications, which is huge, from that standpoint. But again, the Fed has raised interest rates 3 times, so you're talking we went from a 3% interest rate to a 5.5%, 5 3/4. That marks a lot of people out of the market.
And that was predicted.
Oh, yeah.
That was
way back.
That was kind of the plan. Hey, we're going to raise interest rates because we want to slow down the housing market. But for the past 2.5 years, my mortgage lady has been calling me saying, do you want to refi? Do you want a new mortgage? You thinking about buying? You want to sell your house? She's been riding high on the hog, writing out mortgages and doing refis,
Doing
and
tons.
frankly, let's be honest, full disclosure, she just put a pool in her backyard.
Hey, we're coming over this weekend to swim.
Right. I paid for that pool. But you would think that hopefully she's stashed some money away because she's not nearly as busy as she once was.
And that's that peaks and valleys of that industry. But again, from 2008 to today, well, I shouldn't say to today, to a year ago, we basically had a zero interest rate. We technically, for a period of time, we had a negative interest rate, but you couldn't put that on paper.
They were paying me to buy oil.
But at some point in time, it has to start to step up, and the time is now.
Yeah.
So
it's it's a recession. Don't let anybody tell you it's not.
Yeah. But don't run in panic just yet.
Right. It's not your typical recession.
Yeah. The shortest recession was March of 20, and I think it ran until May of 20.
We talk about that event quite a bit.
It was
the market tanked, and then it came right back a month later.
And then the entire year of 2020, most people thought it was going to be terrible. It turned out one of the best years ever.
Right.
And there's 100 reasons why, but again, at the end of the day, it panned out just right.
So if we turn around and there's growth in the third quarter,
we could pop right out of it.
We're out of the recession. Because that word has a very strict definition, 2 quarters of negative growth.
Exactly.
Boom.
That's it.
Now, if the administration wants to say, well, it's not a typical recession, fine. Spin it the way you want to spin it.
However you want.
The hiring is up. People are still demanding workers that they can't find.
Yeah. So let's say that even under that standpoint, that we have the 2 quarters, we have the corporate earnings starting to drop a little bit, but unemployment still stays where it's at or even goes up a couple tenths of a percent. You still are not technically in a full-blown recession. And that's what everybody is panicked on, because if they remember the 80s, you couldn't find a job. No corporations made money.
Yeah.
Everything was tight no matter where you went. You just couldn't get relief anywhere. And that's why it's the dreaded R word, as everybody thinks of that. Whereas 20, it was a drop in the pan. And most recessions last 10.8 months.
10.8 months.
Since World War II coming forward, there's been 13 recessions. This is the 14th recession.
14th recession.
They on average 10.8.
And they last less than a year on average.
Yeah.
How about that?
So it's to be concerned about, but not panic-stricken.
Let's not worry about it yet. And you're saying, reading the tea leaves, looking into the crystal ball, the real recession might end up hitting us 23,
23. The second half of 23, first quarter of 24 is kind of the expectation with all of this stuff put it together.
And even though we're technically in a recession, 2 quarters of negative growth, we're not feeling it yet.
Yeah, there's not being a pinch. People are still out buying stuff, going to dinner.
Plenty of jobs available.
Yeah, plenty of jobs. I forget who it was. I think it was maybe Bank of America's CEO was on the news yesterday, Friday, talking about how the consumer is still spending. So that's kind of
even though they don't realize that. Well, maybe I should
next week it could change, but yeah. But again, maybe pay off high interest credit cards. It could get worse. Maybe a house if you have a mortgage interest, because in the past it used to be that if you had a house and you actually had interest rate on that house, you got a little bit of a tax break. But after 2019, that doesn't exist anymore. So literally it's a true cost. So, maybe you analyze and look at it to say, hey, pay that off.
So just to recap, if you win the lottery, if you just won the Mega Millions, call Jeff first, 636-394-5524. He'll help you assemble the team that you need.
I'll meet you at the Ferrari dealership.
Right. But if you are just kind of wondering, is this a recession? Is it not? What are some smart things I can do in case I want to get ahead of this thing?
Yes.
I've got a couple extra bucks left over. I've got some money sitting in an account that's not making any money.
Yeah.
What can I do with this to be the most responsible with my money? Because I'm an adult and I need to be responsible with my money at this point. That's what Jeff specializes in, actually. 636-394-5524. Capital Advisory Group, Senior Tax Strategist and Wealth Advisor, Jeff Zufall. Thank you so much.
Thank you. See you next week.
Yeah, this time next week we'll find out, are we really? Is it a
really?
real recession? Or one of those fake ones that they just invented. So we'll talk about it. It'll be on our tongues for the next couple of months, I'm sure.
Oh, yeah.
We'll just wait and see what third quarter has for us. All right, Jeff, thank you so much.
Thank you.
We'll see you next week.
You betcha.
You've been listening to Keep What's Yours with Josh Gilbert and Jeff Zufall, Senior Tax Strategist and Wealth Manager at Capital Advisory Group. To learn more, call 636-394-5524 or visit capitaladvisorygrp.com.